What if the uncertainty clouding your mind is not your own? What if it did not arrive with your first breath, but was carefully installed over time? This installation was not performed by truth or by any real evidence, but through relentless repetition, through years of absorbing stories of limitation, of witnessing others choose comfort, of observing strong men diminish themselves to fit inside cages constructed from fear. What if every moment of hesitation you have ever felt, that quiet whisper urging you to pause, to retreat, to question your own capacity, was never native to your spirit? It was acquired, programmed, and rehearsed, but it is not your birthright. You, my friend, were not designed for self-doubt. You were engineered to construct. You were built to ascend. You were created for victory. Not at some distant point in the future, not when the stars finally align, but in this very moment. If you remain with me, not partially engaged but fully immersed, if you breathe these concepts into your being, speak them aloud and revisit them daily, then a fundamental shift will occur. This change will not be theoretical or imaginary. It will be a transformation of your core identity. What I am offering you is not a simple motivational speech. It is a complete system reboot, a total recalibration of the internal operating system that has permitted doubt to steer your life for far too long. When this process concludes, when the final word has been absorbed, you will not recognize the person who once accepted a small life as his inevitable fate. This is because doubt, as I will demonstrate, is merely a mental habit, and all habits, no matter how deeply ingrained, can be systematically dismantled. True belief, however, is a conscious choice. Belief is the profound act of recalling the person you were before the world convinced you to become less. Today, we reconnect with that man, the one who knew, in his bones, that he was destined for significance, the one who did not require external validation to take that initial, courageous step, the one who operated as if his ultimate success was an unavoidable certainty. Let me share with you a secret most men never learn. That man still resides within you, waiting, observing, wondering when you will finally stop listening to that foreign voice of hesitation and begin moving through the world like a creator once more. So, affirm this with me now. I was not made to doubt. I was made to win. Declare it with greater conviction. I was not made to question. I was made to decide. Repeat it until your very voice shakes loose the accumulated dust of indecision. I do not wait for courage. I take action regardless. Today we are not merely experimenting with the concept of belief. We are here to codify it into an unbreakable law. Once you have established a law within your mind, your body, your voice, and your results will inevitably follow. Stay with me from this first word to our final shared breath, and let us initiate the process of searing doubt from your identity permanently. Let me state this with absolute clarity. You were not born with doubt. No human being is. Doubt is not a natural human instinct. It is not hardwired into your fundamental soul. It is a conditioned state, an environmental sickness, a mental parasite that can only thrive when it is consistently fed. And the world, my friend, is overflowing with those who will feed it. You entered this world possessing innate curiosity, a deep hunger, and an internal fire. Observe any small child. He does not second-guess his own ability to walk. He simply attempts it. He does not ask for permission to explore his surroundings. He simply moves. He falls and gets back up. He cries out and reaches again, not because he possesses certainty, but because he has not yet been taught to be afraid. Doubt is not natural. It is a learned behavior. It is modeled by those around us and repeated until it feels true. By the time you reach adulthood, you have been told, both directly and indirectly, that your personal power is somehow dangerous, that your inner fire must be controlled and subdued, that grand dreams are reserved for other people, not for someone like you. Yet here is the powerfully good news. If doubt was a lesson that was learned, then belief is a structure that can be built. That construction project begins with a single defiant act of remembering the essential truth of who you were before the world began to sculpt you. It starts with one small rebellion, the rejection of the idea that you must be hesitant simply because the people around you were. Let me illustrate this principle through the lives of the exceptional men I have dedicated my life to studying. Consider the example of Henry Ford, a man who was not born into any form of privilege or advantage. He possessed no prestigious formal education, no wealthy family lineage, and yet he categorically refused to learn the language of doubt. When the entire world told him that his vision for an affordable, universal automobile was pure insanity, he responded not with words, but with decisive action. His own highly educated engineers informed him that constructing an 8-cylinder engine from a single block of metal was a physical impossibility. His instruction to them was simple and unwavering: produce it anyway. Not on a single occasion, not merely twice, but every single time they returned to him with news of another failure, Ford repeated the same command: produce it anyway. That is not merely genius or luck. That is belief in its purest, most potent form. A belief so resolute, so absolute, that it did not even flinch when confronted with seeming impossibility. Ford had disciplined his mind to obey his internal vision, not his external environment. He had systematically unlearned the habit of doubt and replaced it with the discipline of decision. That single decision then became an immutable law, not only for himself, but for the entire industry he was destined to lead. Or reflect upon Thomas Edison, who confronted failure not once, not 10 times, but over 10,000 distinct times in his relentless pursuit of a practical electric light. 10,000 failures, 10,000 separate moments when doubt could have legitimately claimed the throne of his mind. But Edison did not entertain doubt because he had constructed something far more resilient, an unshakable identity. He did not say, "Perhaps I can succeed." He stated, "I am the man who will succeed." That self-defined identity became his impenetrable armor. With every failed experiment, he refused to internalize the setback. He continued moving forward because his belief was not rooted in accumulating evidence. It was rooted in relentless repetition. He had told himself again and again and again that this would work, that he would work, that something would inevitably work. And so, ultimately it did. You must understand this critical distinction completely. Belief is not a transient feeling that you stumble upon.
It is not something that magically descends upon you after sufficient meditation. It is constructed in the very same manner that a bridge is built, identically to how any habit is formed. It is forged through consistent, daily acts of conscious decision and unwavering discipline. You must choose belief even on the days you cannot feel it. You must repeat your belief even when your old identity screams in protest. You must walk through the world like the man who already knows, even while a part of you still whispers uncertainty, until that doubting part is finally stripped of its influence. This is the profound understanding that Andrew Carnegie possessed. When I immersed myself in his methods and his mindset, I uncovered a truth that altered my own life forever. Carnegie did not view belief as an optional trait. He saw it as structural, as the very foundation upon which everything else is built. He once told me with piercing clarity, if a man does not consciously command his own mind, then someone else most certainly will. And that is precisely what doubt represents, a clear signal that you have surrendered your own internal authority. Not deliberately, not consciously, but gradually, Through countless small, subtle compromises, you have allowed doubt to establish the tone for your life. But that era ends now, because now you are finally awake. Now you understand the true external origin of the doubt you have carried. It was not born with you, it was given to you, and now you are formally returning it. Speak these words aloud with conviction. This doubt does not belong to me. I refuse to carry it any longer. Declare it once more. I will not live my life by hesitation. I choose to live by decisive action. This is how your new life begins, not by first feeling powerful, but by first speaking power into existence. By carrying your body with a posture that reflects certainty, even before that certainty has fully taken root within you. Your subconscious mind does not obey the rules of logic. It obeys the commands of repetition. Every single time you move like a builder, speak like a leader, and act like a man who has already won, you are actively constructing your belief. The man you were always meant to be, he is already inside you. He is simply waiting for the constant noise of doubt to cease. He is waiting for your clear, unequivocal command to rise. And this, right here, is that moment. Let us now speak of the most potent and transformative moment in any man's life. It is the moment he makes a decision so lucid, so permanent, and so absolute that his old self can no longer continue to exist alongside it. This is because of a profound truth that too many individuals never realize. Your identity is not something you eventually discover. It is something you deliberately decide. You do not accidentally stumble into your own greatness. You must formally declare it. You do not wait to somehow become a confident person. You decide that from this moment forward, confidence will be your default posture in the world. You do not idly hope that one day you will become fearless. You decide to take bold action even when you feel the presence of fear. That very act of decision rewrites the fundamental code of who you are. You see, every single man lives from within an identity. The central problem is that most men inhabit an identity they never consciously selected. They live inside an identity that was assembled from random accidents, from mindless repetition, from inherited fears, and from the petty opinions of small-minded people. Because they never took the time to consciously declare who they truly were, they have become a walking collage of contradictions, immensely powerful in their potential, yet completely paralyzed in their daily practice. However, the great men I have studied, the ones who carved their names indelibly into the history of human achievement, they all performed one essential act first. They decided, with finality, who they were. Their decision was not based on their current circumstances, nor was it based on their fleeting feelings. It was based solely on a clear and compelling internal vision. Let me return you to the example of Henry Ford. Before he ever became a titan of industry, before he revolutionized global transportation, Ford made a simple yet profound decision. He would build an automobile for the everyday common man. That was the entirety of it. A single sentence, an unwavering commitment, a definitive line drawn in the sand of his consciousness. Once that foundational decision was made, everything else in his life began to change. He ceased to act like a mere mechanic. He stopped thinking like an ordinary laborer. He transformed into a builder of complex machines, of revolutionary ideas, of a future that only he could perceive with perfect clarity. When the entire world doubted his aim, when bankers and engineers and journalists openly mocked his ambitions, Ford did not bend or compromise. Why was he so immovable? Because his identity had already been decided. Once a man makes that ultimate choice, the external world loses its power to define his limits. Thomas Edison operated from the very same principle. Do you imagine that Edison became a great inventor purely by accident? Was the incandescent light bulb merely a fortunate fluke? The answer is an emphatic no. He decided who he was long before the world had any reason to believe in him. He declared, "I will illuminate the entire world." Then he began walking relentlessly towards that vision each and every single day. When other people called him a fool, when failure was his most constant companion, when tangible results did not appear for years, he continued moving forward regardless. In his mind, the final result had already been achieved. He was merely in the process of catching up to it. You must fully comprehend what I am revealing to you. Tangible results in the external world always follow a solidified internal identity. It never works the other way around. If you operate under the belief that you must first prove yourself before you can claim any form of greatness, you have already lost the battle before it has even begun. The men who truly rise are the men who first decide to rise. They make this decision in silence, in solitude, and long before any external evidence exists to support it. Consider even Abraham Lincoln, a leader who navigated the nation through civil war and immense turmoil. He was not led by the fluctuating winds of public opinion. He was led by the compass of his own decisions. He did not require universal agreement before he would take necessary action. He had already determined the inherent value of freedom, the profound weight of national unity, and the innate dignity of all mankind. Because that foundational decision was final and absolute, fear could not ultimately break him. Now, the responsibility falls to you. It is your turn. You must inscribe your identity in stone, not scribble it nervously in sand, not whisper it with an apologetic tone. You must declare it with your full chest and conviction. Who are you? Who have you decided from this day forward to be? This decision must be made regardless of what you have or have not accomplished up to this very point, because until this decision is final, doubt will always retain a persuasive voice. You must say aloud, with absolute authority, "I am not a man of hesitation. I am a man of immediate execution. I do not drift passively between conflicting identities. I have consciously chosen one, and I now walk in its truth." And you must not say this only a single time. You must repeat it day after day until your subconscious mind hears it so frequently and with such clarity that it has no choice but to accept it as your new, unbreakable law. This is how belief solidifies into identity. This is how a single decision crystallizes into destiny. Allow me to present you with a daily ritual, the very same practice I observed in the lives of Carnegie, Schwab, Ford, and Edison. Every single morning, before the outside world has a chance to speak its limitations, you must speak your truth first. You declare who you are, not with a tone of hopeful wishing, but with the absolute authority of a sovereign ruler. You will write this identity down, you will repeat it aloud, and you will move through your day in perfect alignment with it, especially on the days you do not yet feel its truth. This is because your feelings will always, inevitably, follow the form of your actions. You must first sculpt the identity through your behavior, and the corresponding emotions will rise to support that new structure. Andrew Carnegie often expressed that a man's habits are simply his deepest beliefs set into motion. What are habits, after all, but repeated actions born directly from a consciously chosen identity? A man who sees himself as a sovereign does not carry himself like a subordinate. A man who has decided he is a leader does not wait for a committee's consensus to act. A man who knows, in his core, that he is meant to win does not entertain dalliances with doubt. He moves, and with every single step, his identity deepens and hardens until he becomes an undeniable force of nature. So I must ask you directly, what critical decision have you been postponing? What more powerful version of yourself have you consistently delayed becoming? What identity are you still pretending is not yours for the taking? Let that era of hesitation end here, in this very moment. Today,
You decide. You write the new name you will answer to. You declare the new framework for your life. You burn every bridge leading back to your old self, and you vow never to look back. Let this be the definitive line drawn in the sand of your soul. From this moment forward, you do not doubt. You decide. And the world, in response, will have no choice but to adjust to your new reality. There exists a pivotal moment in every man's journey where the greatest progress is achieved not by taking a new step forward, but by decisively cutting off any possibility of retreat. You must understand that movement without total commitment is not genuine progress. It is merely dabbling. It is testing the waters of your destiny with one toe while keeping your entire weight anchored safely in the harbor of doubt. No empire of any significance was ever constructed by a man who maintained a backup plan for mediocrity. No lasting legacy was ever written by someone who kept the exit door propped open just in case the path became too difficult. The great men I studied all understood a simple, sobering truth. If you leave the bridge to your past standing, fear will forever tempt you to cross over it. The phrase "burn the boats" may sound like a cliché today, but it was a devastating and powerful reality for those who actually lived by its principle. Let me share a true historical account. The Spanish conquistador Hernán Cortés landed on the shores of Mexico in 1519 with a small force of men tasked with confronting a vast and powerful empire. His first command upon arrival was to burn the very ships that had carried them across the ocean. This was not an act of reckless insanity, but a profound understanding of fundamental human nature. When the mind believes a comfortable retreat is available, it will never fully commit all of its resources to the dangerous path forward. While I do not romanticize the conquest itself, the underlying psychological principle remains timeless and potent. You must be willing to destroy your own exits if you genuinely wish to force destiny to open the door ahead of you. This strategic principle holds true not only in warfare, but in the daily battles of your own life. Henry Ford did not approach his vision by saying his team would simply try the automobile idea and return to building carriages if it failed. He staked his entire company and reputation on its success. When he committed fully to the Model T, he made the radical decision to shut down the production of every other vehicle his company was making. He did this against the vehement advice of his own board of directors and in the face of his peers' fears. He simplified his entire operation, he streamlined the process, and he focused with laser-like intensity. In doing so, he created a revolution in modern manufacturing. Why was this possible? Because he had intentionally eliminated any possibility of retreat. Ford was not seeking comfort, he was pursuing completion. Thomas Edison also operated without a plan B. When he set his mind on creating a functional electric light, he confronted over 10,000 documented failures. Yet every single one of those attempts was made with the unwavering resolution of a man who had already sealed his own fate. He famously stated that he had not failed, but had simply discovered 10,000 ways that would not work. That is not the voice of a man who left a mental door open to quitting. It is the voice of a man who locked that door, threw away the key, and set the entire room behind him ablaze. Andrew Carnegie, arriving in this country as a young immigrant with nothing but a low-level job and an ambitious mind, decided early that poverty would not author his life story.
He did not pursue wealth as a vague wish. He pursued it as a dire necessity, not driven by greed, but by a burning desire for genuine impact. He devoted his every waking moment to the mastery of industry, management, and communication. When he finally committed to the future of steel, he committed with every fiber of his being. He was not dabbling in an industry, and because of that total commitment, he rose to dominate it. What is your personal retreat? Be brutally honest with yourself.
Is it the safe job you cling to as a security net, even as you feel it slowly dulling your spirit? Is it the powerful voice within you that you silence because you fear the opinions of others? Is it the grand plan you never initiate because you keep telling yourself the timing will be better tomorrow? These are not clever life strategies. They are shelters you have built to house your fear. And as long as those shelters remain standing, you will never be able to walk through life with your full, undivided power. You cannot possibly act like you were meant to win if your energy is perpetually split between building your future and planning your retreat. You must commit fully and completely. You must prove that commitment to yourself by systematically eliminating every single exit strategy you have created for yourself. It is easy to verbally claim you are all in. It is an entirely different matter to courageously remove every other conceivable option. This is precisely what the greats did. Consider Abraham Lincoln. He did not entertain compromise on the fundamental principle of preserving the Union. He understood the immense risks. He knew the terrible cost. He was aware that a civil war would scar the nation for generations, but he also knew that preserving the soul of America required a conviction without any loopholes. And so, with the ink of his proclamations and the blood of a nation, he wrote his unwavering stand permanently into history. You must now do the very same thing, metaphorically and mentally. Burn the path of retreat. Let your fears scream in protest. Let your doubt panic. Let your old self cry out in desperation. But you must not, under any circumstances, go back. You must delete the word maybe from your vocabulary. Delete the concept of someday. Delete every phrase that begins with, if this doesn't work, I'll just... These phrases are nothing more than pre-written permission slips for future failure. If you were truly meant to win, and I know with certainty that you were, then you must act like it by surgically removing every possible option except for total victory. You must do this even when progress is slow, even when the path is lonely, even when no one is there to applaud your efforts, especially during those times. Because once you make that final decision and then seal it with irreversible action, a profound shift occurs within you. Your mind stops negotiating with mediocrity. Your energy ceases its wasteful scattering. Your entire spirit sharpens to a fine point. And the external world, sensing this new resolve, begins to bend to your will. Say these words aloud with me now, with absolute finality. There is no retreat. I have made my decision, and the door behind me is gone forever. I move with finality in every step I take. I act without any thought of escape. These words cannot be spoken a single time and forgotten. They must be repeated daily with conviction until your very body forgets what it ever felt like to harbor doubt. This process is not about theatrical drama. It is about unyielding mental discipline. Burning your bridges is not a loud or showy event. It is the quiet, resolute decision you make before the dawn each day, reaffirming that today, once again, you will not run. And if you hold that mental line long enough, something incredible will inevitably happen. Your fear will simply stop talking to you, because it will finally know with absolute certainty that you are no longer listening to its empty threats. My deliberate actions train my mind to believe. I am not passively waiting for motivation to strike. I move forward with unwavering discipline. Write these truths down, speak them aloud with conviction, repeat them every single day, and here is what will inevitably occur. Your inner voice, which once wavered with every challenge, will begin to harden like tempered steel. It will sharpen to a fine point. It will start to speak with absolute clarity even during moments of external uncertainty. When that profound internal shift happens, everything in your external world will begin to change. You will no longer use your internal dialogue to talk yourself out of taking action. You will instead use that same voice to talk yourself into immediate motion. You will no longer entertain excuses as valid reasons for inaction. You will learn to interrupt them with new, powerful instructions. You will no longer waste energy doubting your chosen identity. You will actively reinforce it with every single decision you make and every breath you take. This disciplined practice is precisely how you systematically eliminate doubt. You do not patiently wait for it to magically leave on its own. You actively drown it in a flood of your own spoken truth. You consciously replace the old limiting voice. You deliberately install a new commanding one. Once your powerful subconscious mind finally accepts this new voice as its dominant authority, doubt may still knock at your door, but your mind will not even hear it. The inner voice will be too focused on the future, too decisive in its commands, and too thoroughly trained to ever look backward again. So I challenge you directly. Make this very speech a part of your daily ritual. Do not do this just once, but again and again and again, because relentless repetition is the fundamental mechanism through which we truly become who we decide to be.
A defining moment arrives in every man's life, where he must make a critical choice. Will I follow my fleeting feelings, or will I follow my final decisions? Most men, without even realizing it, live entirely under the rule of their temporary emotions. They take action only when it feels good or convenient. They pause their progress the moment it begins to feel difficult. They speak their mind only when they are feeling confident. They hide from challenges whenever they feel uncertain. And then they spend their lives wondering why their reality never transforms into what it was truly meant to become. However, the builders, the producers, the genuine titans of history, they all lived by a completely different internal compass. They were not governed by their passing moods, by popular opinion, or by fear cleverly disguised as logical caution. They moved through the world by faith in their own decisions. They did not wait to feel brave before taking a courageous step. They acted before the feeling of courage ever had a chance to arrive. They trusted what they had already decided far more than they trusted what they temporarily felt. Allow me to explain this principle with perfect clarity. Faith is not some vague mystical energy floating in the ether. Faith is a mental attitude, a cognitive muscle, a discipline of the will. It is constructed like a strong wall, brick by deliberate brick, through consistent repetition, through firm decision, and through the absolute refusal to waver from your chosen path. Most importantly, genuine faith is always a conscious choice. You do not require an external reason to begin believing. You must first choose to believe, and the reasons and evidence will inevitably follow your commitment. Henry Ford was the very embodiment of this principle. He was told repeatedly by educated engineers, cautious financiers, and supposed industry experts that his grand ideas were sheer impossibility, that the public would never want an automobile, that an 8-cylinder engine cast in a single block could not be manufactured. His response to every single objection was the same simple, powerful command: build it anyway. Why could he do this? Because his core belief was not based on the fluctuating external world. It was born and nurtured deep inside him. He installed his faith
through daily repetition, through relentless forward motion, and through systematically refusing to entertain any contradiction to his vision. Ford did not always feel strong or certain, but he always led himself as if he were absolutely certain. That is the entire key you must grasp. You do not need to feel the faith emotionally. You need to move and act like it is already there, fully formed and operational. Thomas Edison confronted thousands of failures on his long journey to create a practical electric light. Yet he was never truly broken by this process. Why was he so resilient? Because he had already decided, long before any success, that his ultimate victory was completely inevitable. Once that foundational decision was firmly installed in his mind, he no longer required any external validation to continue. Each individual failure was no longer interpreted as a sign he should stop. It was simply logged as evidence that meaningful progress was actively being made. That is the very essence of what real faith looks like in practice. It is not a warm emotion, but a cold identity relentlessly backed by consistent action. Now, let me speak to you with total plainness. Most men tragically confuse their temporary emotions with genuine guidance. They mistakenly believe that if a task feels heavy, it is a sign they should abandon it. If a path feels uncertain, they assume it must be the wrong direction for them. But you must listen to me very carefully right now. Discomfort is not a red light signaling you to stop. It is simply the toll you must be willing to pay to walk the exclusive road toward genuine greatness. Abraham Lincoln understood this principle intimately. He was elected president during the most fractious period in the nation's history. The choices he would make were poised to determine not only the fate of the United States, but the very fate of human slavery. His own cabinet was bitterly divided. The nation was descending into a brutal civil war, and the critical voices around him grew louder and more numerous every day, shouting nothing but doubt. Yet President Lincoln did not flinch or retreat. He wrote and issued the Emancipation Proclamation, not because he felt widespread support for it, but because he fundamentally believed in the moral rightness of the mission. He moved forward on faith, not on fleeting emotion. That resolute commitment is precisely what cemented his historical greatness. Your emotion may feel intensely real in the moment, but it often lies to you. It speaks in the familiar language of your past. It merely echoes your old habits, your old limited identity, your old deeply ingrained doubts. But genuine faith speaks to you from your future. Faith speaks from the perspective of the man you have already decided to become, not from the memory of the man you used to be. That is exactly why I emphasize the power of repetition so deeply and so often, because consistent repetition is what forges unshakable faith. The more frequently you speak your belief aloud, the more consistently you act from that belief, the more it solidifies into your mental default setting. Once it becomes your true default, emotion finally loses its powerful grip over your decisions. So I must ask you directly, who is truly leading your life at this very moment? Is it the man who acts based on his inner fire, on his clear vision, on his defined purpose? Or is it the man who waits indefinitely until he feels good enough to finally make a move? You must make the definitive decision today. I lead my life from faith, not from feeling. This fundamental shift means you show up and do the work
even on the days you feel profoundly tired. You speak your truth even when you can feel your own voice shaking with nervousness. You follow through on your commitments even when the tangible results have not yet arrived to validate your efforts.
Why must you do this? Because authentic faith is not about having evidence before you act. It is about moving forward with conviction despite the lack of evidence. Let me provide you with a profoundly practical way to live this out, starting immediately. Every single morning, you must declare your core beliefs out loud to yourself. Do not declare what you currently feel, but declare what you consciously choose to believe. I act before I ever feel ready. I am not a slave to my passing emotions. I command my emotions to align with my purpose. I walk by faith because the man I am actively becoming is already more real than my current doubts. Then, you must move immediately into action without any internal debate or hesitation. You build genuine faith not by thinking about it abstractly, but by acting as if it were already your permanent possession. And yes, you will absolutely feel internal resistance. Yes, the old familiar thoughts will rise up to challenge you, but you must remember they are merely ghosts of your past. You do not negotiate with ghosts. You replace them entirely with the fire of your new decisions. This is the identical process that Charles M. Schwab utilized when he helped build the foundations of the colossal U.S. Steel Corporation. He was not always intellectually certain of the final outcome, but he carried himself with the unshakable demeanor of certainty. He knew a fundamental truth. People do not follow a person's emotions. They follow a person's conviction. And the only reliable way to carry genuine conviction is to practice it deliberately every single day. Therefore, you must train yourself to move forward without needing to feel perfect first. Say these words with me right now, with force. I do not trust the unreliable voice of my emotion. I trust the steady voice of my purpose. I do not wait to feel powerful before I act. I act consistently until I become powerful. I lead myself with intention. I do not simply follow the wind. Repeat these powerful statements every single morning. Let them take deep root in your subconscious mind. Let them systematically replace the weak voice that once led you to pause and hesitate. Let them become the permanent soundtrack to all of your future actions. Because the man who leads his life based on emotion will always, inevitably be led by his underlying fears. But the man who leads his life with consistent faith, he becomes truly unshakable. He becomes genuinely unstoppable. He makes his own success feel completely inevitable. You must absolutely refuse to reopen a decision once it is made, unless genuinely new facts demand a reconsideration, not simply new feelings of uncertainty. You reaffirm your path daily through the power of repetition. I am a man who moves with purpose. I am a man who leads from the front. I am a man who acts with conviction. This is the precise mechanism by which the mind is systematically retrained. This is how genuine confidence is installed into your very being. This is how deep-seated fear is permanently removed. It does not happen all at once, but through the daily, unglamorous habit of consistent movement. Even Abraham Lincoln, navigating the absolute darkest moments of the Civil War, understood this principle and acted decisively. He did not possess unanimous support from his country or his cabinet. He did not have clear, undeniable signs of imminent victory. Yet he signed the Emancipation Proclamation because he had already made the fundamental decision that slavery must end and the Union must be preserved. That final internal decision is what provided him the immense strength required to lead a fractured nation. His power did not stem from popularity or from consensus. It flowed from a decision that was final, immovable, and sacred to his core identity. That exact same power is available for you to wield right now, but only if you are willing to finally and permanently shut the door on delay. Say it with me one more time, with absolute finality. I decide quickly and with clarity. I act without apology or hesitation. I do not explain who I am to the world.
I demonstrate it through my relentless actions. Now you must move. Identify the single thing you have most delayed. Make that difficult call. Take that intimidating first step. Close that open loop of indecision. Because the man who moves first in his own life is the man who wins, and the man who consistently wins is a man who is no longer ruled by fear. A moment inevitably arrives in every man's life when the persistent voice of doubt must be permanently silenced. You do not debate with this voice, you do not reason with it, and you certainly do not comfort it. You kill it. This is not done with softness or infinite patience, but with the raw, decisive force of a man who has finally had enough. Doubt is not something you learn to manage or coexist with. It is something you must actively starve. You starve it by feeding your mind a consistent diet of faith through relentless repetition, and by building an internal fire so hot it incinerates the old version of yourself completely, leaving only ash. You must first understand this fundamental truth. Doubt is not wisdom. It is not truth. It is merely a habit, a mental reflex you have rehearsed so many times that you began mislabeling it as being realistic or thinking ahead or protecting your interests, when what you are actually doing is committing a profound betrayal against the man you were born to become. You must decide, right here and right now, that doubt dies on this day, not tomorrow and not through a gradual decline, but now, in this decisive moment. Consider how the great ones achieved this mental state. Abraham Lincoln, the leader who held a torn nation together, did not live a life free from fear. He was publicly ridiculed, deeply hated, and constantly attacked.
He buried his own beloved child during his presidency. He was forced to lead amidst total chaos. And yet, he consciously chose belief over doubt every single day. He repeated his core purpose during his private moments of silence. He wrote letters he never sent to clarify his thoughts. He walked alone to fortify his resolve. In those critical moments of solitude, he relentlessly reaffirmed his mission, not with certainty in the final outcome, but with certainty in his own identity, that he was the man destined to carry this burden, that he must be the one. Andrew Carnegie, born into absolute poverty, entered a world dominated by established titans and industrial giants. He possessed no prestigious pedigree and no special family connections. However, he carried one overwhelming advantage, a definitive sense of purpose. With this single weapon, he systematically drowned his doubt through daily repetition. He wrote and spoke his chief aim aloud each day, until the very thought of failure no longer had a place in his mental atmosphere. That is not arrogance, that is the highest form of mental discipline. That is the exact process by which a boy working in a telegraph office transformed himself into the richest man in the entire world. Henry Ford faced endless waves of opposition and criticism from the press, from educated engineers, and even from the government. Yet none of their external doubt ever managed to penetrate his internal system. What was his secret? His internal repetition of belief was simply louder than all of their external noise combined. He told himself what was possible, over and over and over again, until that belief hardened into a material as strong as steel, and it was that internal steel that ultimately built his external empire. You are fundamentally no different from these men. The only thing that truly separates you from their historic achievements is the content of what you willingly allow to repeat inside the private theater of your own mind. I will state it again for emphasis. Doubt is not reality. It is a shadow, a worn-out recording, a broken loop playing on repeat inside a man who simply forgot he had the power to change the track. Therefore, you must now consciously overwrite that old recording, not with shallow positivity, not with vague hope, but with a new and powerful identity. Speak these words aloud with authority. I do not argue or negotiate with doubt. I immediately replace it with decisive action. I do not let fear speak a second word. I silence it the moment it appears. I do not shrink from my challenges. I do not flinch in the face of difficulty. I do not waste my energy rehearsing weakness. The more you deliberately rehearse belief through your actions, the more your entire nervous system adapts to that state as its new, normal operating condition. It is irrelevant how many years you have spent in doubt. It does not matter how deep the mental rut feels. Consistent repetition has the power to rewire everything. But you must understand this critical point. Doubt will not die a gentle, quiet death. It is a mental addiction, and like any addiction, it will fight viciously for its survival. It will whisper to you again during the quiet, lonely hours, in moments of physical and mental fatigue, in the brief pauses between your hard-won progress. When it does, you must not engage it in conversation. You must immediately return to your new script. You must return to your command. You must return to the foundational truth you are now installing. I do not live my life in hesitation. I move through the world with fire. My belief in myself is louder than my fear of failure. My repetition of truth is my shield against doubt. My chosen identity is my most powerful weapon. Let this next statement burn itself permanently into your chest. You are no longer permitted to be the man who doubts. That man is gone, forever buried. We do not negotiate with his ghostly voice. We do not make any room for his tired excuses. We do not check in on him when times inevitably get hard. He had his turn and he wasted it with inaction. Now it is your turn. And the man you have consciously chosen to become, he walks through the world differently. He does not need to feel ready before he begins. He moves because he gave his word that he would. He does not need to see the full, detailed plan laid out before him. He trusts the fundamental law of motion, knowing that clarity emerges from action. He does not fear failure because his core identity is rooted in the quality of his actions, not in the uncertainty of the outcomes. So say it now with ultimate finality. I do not need more time to prepare. I need more fire in my belly to act. I do not entertain doubt as a valid perspective. I enforce my belief through my behavior. I do not delay my life. I dominate the day ahead of me. Let your new identity be permanently sealed through relentless repetition, through daily decisive action, and through the absolute refusal to let the old, weak voice take another breath. This is your defining moment, not merely to hear these words, but to repeat them and live them until they become your unconscious default, until your subconscious mind no longer recognizes the old you, until doubt simply does not know where to find you anymore. Because the man who truly wins, he doesn't need 1,000 answers to all his questions. He just needs to know with unshakable certainty who he is, and then to walk through life as if his victory is already done. So walk forward from this day and do not look back. The man you used to be, he is not coming with you. Let him die in the silence of your past, and let the man of fire and action now rise to take his rightful place. And so the work begins, not with a shout, but with a silent decision made in the quiet of your own mind. You have been given the ancient keys not to a forgotten kingdom, but to the sovereign territory of your own potential. The architecture of your new reality is now yours to build, one deliberate thought, one decisive action at a time. If this message has resonated with you, if you feel the embers of that old fire stirring, then please help our channel grow and spread this light to others waiting in the shadows. Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to continue this journey of awakening with us. Drop a comment below and share what you have decided to become, for your declaration fuels our next transmission. The world does not change by chance. It changes by those who remember their power and act upon it. Thank you for watching.